Hi, this is Jason from Horrific Nightmares, and it's time for a controversial view. Today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different, and that is the Mandela effect. Now, why the Mandela effect? I was actually kind of surprised when Joe first brought this to my attention. He thought it would be a fun video to do, and of course, it's controversial because it has a lot to do with the way people's minds work. So, what is the Mandela effect? The Mandela effect is there was a person who thought that Nelson Mandela was dead, swears that they saw the funeral, but it never happened. He was still alive. And things like that happen to us in everyday life. Like we misinterpret things or swear that we saw something. Maybe we didn't. Now, the Mandela effect has a big effect in films because when you hear something or see something and you quote something back, a lot of people quote it to fit what they're doing at the time. And people take that as that's the right phrase. I'll get to that in a second. But then it gets repeated so many times that people think that that's the way it is when it's really not. For example, in The Empire Strikes Back, which of course is a favorite of mine, a lot of people think the phrase, Luke, I am your father, because a lot of people have used it in films in order to crack jokes or just to as a reference to Star Wars. That's actually not the case. There is no Luke in that statement. There is a no, I am your father. Of course, I'm saying it in my worst James Earl Jones voice. But it's interesting how many people think that that's the way it is. And I've heard it in movies said like that when they're joking around or making reference to Star Wars. Another one I wanted to talk about, and this is one that I actually thought was real, and that is Scooby Doo. I always thought that Shaggy had an Adam's apple. Now, you can look up all these Mandela effect in films and stuff on the internet, and if you look at a lot of them, they make sense. So, as I was saying, Shaggy's Adam's apple. There is no Adam's apple, but I could have sworn I always saw one. I don't know where that came from. Then we have The Wizard of Oz, which is Fly, My Pretties. So many people have used that over the years. That's actually not the phrase. It's supposed to be fly, fly, fly. And it's weird how things get hooked into people's minds. The next one, of course, is from, I know, one of Bryn's favorite movies, his favorite movie of all time, and that's Jaws. And the phrase has always been, you're going to need a bigger boat. I've heard that in countless movies when they make a reference or a joke about it. That's actually not the case. It's we're going to need a bigger boat. This is one that I'm going to talk about a little bit more. We're going back to Star Wars, the original, of course. And I think I know where the snafu came in. And that is C3PO has a silver leg. Most people think he's all gold, and that's not the case. His right leg, if you're looking at him, is, or if you're looking from his point of view, his right leg is actually silver. And I'm going to blame that one on Kenner and everyone else who's done C3PO action figures because they were so big when I was younger. I had C3PO, of course, and he did not have a silver leg. So I think people got it in their minds that he was just gold from seeing figures, from seeing models. I had a model kit where, of course, on the outside of the box, it showed C3PO all painted. And no silver leg. So I think that had a lot to do with that one. All right, moving right along to Snow White. And I have always thought this one was mirror, mirror on the wall when the queen is talking to the mirror. It's actually not the case. The correct term or the correct phrase is magic mirror on the wall. I think that has a little bit to do with Bugs Bunny, but I could be wrong. But I always thought it was that one, mirror, mirror on the wall. Nope. One that kind of shocked me, and I think this is because this is used a lot in reference, like a lot of the other ones, and it's repeated a lot, is from The Silence of the Lambs, where Hannibal is walking in, and everyone says that he makes this greeting, "Hello, Clarice." It's actually not the case. It's "Good morning." And the last one I wanted to talk about that you can easily look up, I'm going to give you a couple of my own at the very end. But the last one I want to talk about that you could also look up is Field of Dreams. For I don't know how many years, because I was late to the party on that one. I always thought they said, if you build it, they will come. It's actually not the phrase. And if you watch the movie, it couldn't be the phrase. The phrase is actually, if you build it, he will come. And I don't want to spoil the end of Field of Dreams, but trust me, that's the right phrase. Now, a couple of my own. A lot of people know one of my favorite movies of all time is Magic. And I'm putting up the one sheet, of course, as a reference. And if you read the one sheet, it has the phrase that he says. Now, I was terrorized by this video, by this TV spot. I came out of my room one time because I couldn't sleep, and it just happened to come on TV, and I freaked out because it was probably one of the most terrifying things I'd ever seen. It still gets me to this day. All of a sudden, no one knows about it. How is that possible? I did a lot of digging. First of all, I've been a Magic fan ever since I was a little kid, and I think it's things that scare you or things that unnerve you or terrify you that you get into the most because you want to understand why it's so scary, I think. So, never saw the TV spot again, thank God, because I would have probably run away or flipped out. But I found out after doing a paper in the, I think, seventh or eighth grade about magic because I was obsessed with it. I went through the card catalog and everything. Remember the card catalog in the library? And hardly anything was available on the movie Magic. It basically came and went quickly. It did not do well, although I do think it's one of the better 70s horror films, psychological thrillers, whatever you want to call it. But it didn't do well. I read the book, and as I was doing this paper, I realized because of an article in one of the magazines that, of course, the card catalog showed me, that they actually took the TV spot off the air because parents were complaining that it was scaring their children. So I was like, wow, there was an actual, it was real, and it was an actual reason why I never saw it again. So the last one I want to talk about is Marnie. And this one is probably, oh man, 40, 49, 48 years in the making. Now, Marnie is from Alfred Hitchcock. And my first time watching this one, I mean, I'd seen a lot of Hitchcock throughout my life, but this was one of the ones that I never watched until I got it on Blu-ray. And I watched it for the first time a couple years ago, give or take, a year, 2 years, somewhere in that vicinity. And I found it. I found a scene that had terrorized me and tormented me since I was a little kid. Just to set the scene real quick, I don't want to make this video too long, but there was a scene in this film that I saw when I was probably 3 or 4 years old. And I was at my parents' friend's house. This scene came on from Marnie, and it just traumatized me. It was the very end of the film, if you've seen it. It was about a woman who was a prostitute, and she would handle the sailors that came in, you know. And of course, she was in Baltimore, which was kind of funny. I didn't know that until I watched it later on. And he started to abuse her. And actually, the sailor was played by Bruce Dern. So when he abused her, the daughter did something to the man and hit him with a fireplace poker. And if I could tell you how I remembered it being very dark. I remember there being tons of blood, even though there wasn't that many. But I looked for this scene for 40 some years. Of course, when you have the internet, it makes it easier, but I still couldn't find it. I was beginning to think that I imagined this scene. But it's actually the end of Marnie. It's kind of a disturbing scene, too, especially when you're 3 or 4. So I just remember that from my past, and I remember it really traumatizing me. And seeing it again after looking for it for 40 some years is really a wild thing. So, yeah. Don't forget to check out Joe's controversial view for the Mandela effect. And remember, guys, physical media matters. And until next time.